G'day and welcome to another episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups. On this episode, I'm going to show you how to do a quick and simple oil change on your classic Mini. Alright, so first step we're going to do is jack up the car and make sure you use jack stands as well. Once the car is jacked up, we're going to grab our axle stands and we're going to put them in position. We're just going to jack it up off the bottom of the subframe here and here on each side. So do it on a surface that's quite flat. Once you're happy with it, let the jack down. Move the jack out of the way. Now, next thing we're going to do is grab a drain tin and we're going to crack the sump plug. Before we do, we're going to come up here and we're going to loosen off and remove the oil cap. This will help it to breathe, and that way it won't create a vacuum inside the engine and will drain the oil faster. Now here's one of Tomo's tech tips. If you're going to be changing the oil on your car, go for a drive, get the engine hot, and then once it's hot, drain the oil. The reason for this is the viscosity of the oil is going to be thinner, therefore it's going to drain quicker. So the viscosity is the rate at which something is poured through a fixed orifice. So with our engine oil, it's going to be 20 W60. So the weight of the oil when it is hot is 20, when it is cold it is 60. So that's the amount of time. So maybe a litre of oil poured through a standard funnel and it might take 20 seconds when it's hot compared to when it's cold, it takes 60 seconds. That's an example. It's probably not what it is, but that's generally how they calculate it. So another handy tip is when you're draining oil, make sure you drain it into a tub that holds more oil or liquid than what you're draining into it. So for instance, we know the Mini holds approximately 5 litres of oil. This one holds just shy of 20, so it's going to be more than enough. If you don't, it's going to overflow and create the biggest mess. Next thing we're going to do is loosen the sump plug. So in my case, I'm getting a 30mm socket and I'm just going to crack it. Once it's loose, we can then undo it by hand and let the oil drain. Now if this is hot, you need to remove the sump plug as fast as you can out of the way so that way it doesn't get on you. If it does, have a rag handy. Now we'll put the sump plug off to the side, we'll give it a clean and we can wait for the oil to drain. Now here's Tomo's tech tip number 2 for the day. When you go to change your oil on your car, if you don't have a service sticker available to you, write the kilometres and the date on the bottom of the oil filter. That way you know next time you go to change your oil, when it was done and how many kilometres. This will help you keep accountable for doing your servicing, not only via time, but also kilometre intervals. Now that you've started to slow down with the draining, grab the old sump plug, give it a clean. Now I've put a magnet on the bottom of mine just to make sure that if any metal debris inside the engine or gearbox does come off, it's going to stick to the magnet. Mine was fairly clean, so give it a wipe over, put in a new sump plug washer, and then you can reinstall it. Now do it up finger tight, grab yourself a ratchet or even a spanner and just nip it up. Once again, if you're unsure how tight this needs to be, consult the owner's manual. So now comes the next fun part. You're going to grab yourself a oil filter claw or a strap and we're going to slide it up through the bottom here and we're going to change the oil filter. Once it's on, get your ratchet and then we're going to loosen it. Now once it's cracked, you can gently grab it with your hand and loosen it. Make sure though that if it is hot, you wait for it to drain and stop draining before you remove it, otherwise you're going to get covered in oil. Now because my car is quite cold at the moment and I haven't driven it, it's not going to be a problem for us. Okay, so now that it's loose and it's starting to drip, I'm just going to slide it off to the side. Once it comes out, you're then just going to turn it on its side so you can drain the remainder of the oil out of the filter. Now once you're happy the oil is drained out of the filter, you're just going to bring it down the side of the engine and the gearbox, turn it upside down, drain the remainder of the oil out of it, and then stick it off to the side. Remember to dispose of these responsibly. If you don't have an oil filter collection, you can take it to your local parts store and they will dispose of it for you. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we've got our new filter. We're going to grab a little bit of engine oil that came out of it and we're going to smear it around the O-ring of the oil filter. This is to ensure that it seals properly. Once you're satisfied with it, grab a rag and then we're just going to clean up inside the old filter housing to ensure that it is nice and clean and that it's not going to have any debris or contaminants on there. That way when you put it on, it's going to seal properly. Once you're satisfied it's clean, grab the new filter and then we can install it. Now with a spin-on type filter like this, it is important that you only tighten it with your hand. Do not use any tools whatsoever, otherwise you will damage it. Alright, so just grab yourself a rag and just wipe down the excess oil that was on there. You can use a bit of degreaser or even brake cleaner to remove it. Once you're satisfied it's clean, we can lower the car down and then refill it. Now that we've cleaned it, we can remove the drain tin and our tools, then we can lower the vehicle to the ground. Once the vehicle has come free of the jack stands, remove them completely out of the way, and then we can lower the jack all the way down. Now it's important that when you check or even adjust your engine oil level, you do it on a completely flat surface. Okay, so the engine oil that we're using is Gulf Western 1550. This is the semi-synthetic zinc enhanced engine oil that they have formulated for the touring car series. So this was given to me as a sample for us to try. I'll put it in and I'll let you guys know how it goes. Okay, so we're just going to pour it nice and slowly. These fill up quite slowly because the engine oil is so thick. Make sure that when you do change the engine oil in your classic Mini, that you use something that has a high zinc level. The reason for this is it shares the engine and gearbox oil as one. So you need to ensure that everything is wearing completely fine with the other component. Most engines and gearboxes are separate, so with the Mini it does make it quite unique that they do share the same oil. So make sure it has a high zinc level. Now like I was saying, these will take a long time for it to fill up with engine oil. In terms of long time, it might take you a couple of minutes to pour it all in, simply because the engine oil is so thick. So as you're pouring it in, make sure you do it slowly. If you need a funnel, use one. If not, you can just use your steady hand. When I used to ask my old foreman, how much oil does this car take? He always used to respond, fill it up until it's full. But in saying that, most of us know that the classic Mini takes approximately 4.5 litres. So having a 5 litre bottle of oil, you're pretty well guaranteed that you could use almost all of it, if not have a little bit of leftover. Now that the engine oil is topped up, grab your oil cap, stick it back on, and then we're going to run the engine and make sure there's no oil leaks. Now not only are we checking for any oil leaks when we go to start up the car, but also make sure that it has oil pressure. So I've got myself an oil pressure gauge here. We're going to be making sure that when we start it, it does have oil pressure. So ignition comes on, I'm going to turn the headlights on just so we can see the oil pressure gauge. We're going to start it and we're going to check it not only for pressure, but also for oil leaks. Once you're satisfied the engine has oil pressure or the oil light has gone out, you can then turn it off. Now that we've just started it, we also want to ensure that there are no oil leaks. So have a look underneath the car, check the oil filter, make sure there's no oil coming out of it, and there's no oil on the ground, as well as the sump plug. Now then the last thing left to do is to grab your engine oil dipstick. We're going to pull it out, we're going to give it a wipe, then we're going to reinsert it so we can get a fresh, clean oil reading. Pull it back out, then we're going to check the oil level. So as you can see, it is just a little bit low, so we're going to top that up. It's better to be a little bit lower than what it is over full. The reason for that is you don't want oil in your intake system because it can cause a hydraulic lock and cause the engine to blow excessive amount of smoke. Also, it is a bit of a pain in the ass to drain out engine oil. So we're just going to top it up. Just give it a little bit of oil. And we're just going to recheck it. Alright, so that's on point, so that's exactly where we need it to be, at the maximum line. Make sure you reinsert your dipstick and refit your engine oil cap. Now most of the time when I do services it's at work, but because we're not at work and I need to dispose of the old engine oil, I've got a 20 litre tub here with a funnel we're going to drain the oil into. Make sure you save the dolphins and don't pour it down the drain. Dispose of it thoughtfully. If you're ever unsure of where to dispose of it, go and see your local auto parts store or even your local mechanic, as they will dispose of it for you. It might cost you a few dollars, but it's worthwhile and saves you throwing it in the bin or even pouring it down the drain. Alright, so that's all the oil out of the container. You can leave this upside down and let it all drain out, but I'm just going to wipe it over and then give it a clean out a bit later on. So that's it, guys. That's how you service your classic Mini and do a simple engine oil change. So make sure you not only top it up, but you also check it on a flat surface and ensure that there's no oil leaks below the car. And that if you're going to be labeling the filter, you write on it with permanent marker. Thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy your long weekend, and we'll see you next time on an episode of Tomo's Tune Ups, all things DIY and mechanical.